Imagine the sea turns black under a sky that offers no mercy. You grip an oar on a Norse knarr in AD 1000, and your hands crack open again because salt finds every wound. You feel your teeth chatter so hard the jaw aches. Greenland shrinks behind. Ice, thin pasture, hungry mouths, but ahead a rumor becomes a coastline, and the air smells wrong in the best way. Forests, sap, living earth. You see land that looks like it wants you, but you also feel it watching you. The knarr surges, then grinds. The hull shudders as it kisses the shallows. Men shout. You jump into surf that steals breath and strength at once. You feel stones roll under your boots, and you stumble but keep pushing because the ship cannot sit here like a beached whale. Hands slam against wet planks. The knarr groans, therefore everyone heaves harder. You see the prow inch, then lurch, then settle. The tide line sits too close, and that means time is short. You sprint loads above the water like each bundle is a heart that must keep beating. Iron nails clink in a sack. A small anvil bites into a shoulder. Wool itches through wet tunic. Dried fish stinks, but it is life. Tools, axe, adze, auger, feel heavier than they should, therefore the fear makes them heavier. You see footprints around your own, messy from landing. You see gulls wheel, screaming like alarm horns. Then the normal world breaks. You look up from the load, and the treeline looks like a wall. You see movement, 2 shapes, then 6, then none. You blink, and the forest swallows them like a mouth. You feel the hair rise along the neck because those are not birds. Those are watchers. You try to count, but the count refuses to stay still. Therefore, uncertainty becomes the first enemy. A leader's voice cuts through the surf. Orders snap like whips. Drag the ship higher, stack the goods, ring the camp. Axes come out. Timber must fall now, therefore breath turns into work without questions. You swing, and the blade bites into living wood. Sap sprays and sticks to skin. You feel the shock travel up the arms, a dull throb that promises blisters by night. You hear the rhythm of many axes, fast, urgent, like a drum that says, "Build before darkness." The first wall rises from turf and panic. Clods of earth tear free, heavy as soaked bread. You stack them, smear mud, wedge logs. The wall is ugly, but it stands. You feel the weight of wet soil pulling at your back. The smell is not Greenland's cold stone. It is rich, sweet earth. Therefore, the land feels generous. But generosity can be a trap. You see the treeline again and swear it shifts, like someone steps behind a trunk and holds breath. A shout slices the work. Someone points near the water. A footprint sits in the sand, fresh, deep, purposeful. Not a boot. Not a hoof. Toes spread, pressed hard. You crouch, and the print looks like a message pushed into the world. You are late. You feel your stomach tighten because this place is not empty and never is. Therefore, every hammer blow from now on is also a warning. Smoke soon stings the eyes because iron must live. A tiny forge coughs, fed with charcoal that disappears too fast. The bellows wheeze. Sparks leap like angry insects. You hold tongs, and the heat licks the knuckles. You feel sweat under wool even though the air bites. A nail glows orange, therefore it becomes precious like a coin. Without nails, the ship loosens. Without rivets, planks gape. Without repairs, the ocean eats you on the way home. You see the anvil's face shine in firelight and hear the ring of hammer on metal, sharp and hopeful. Food turns into a daily knife fight. Some mornings nets come up heavy, fish thrashing like silver curses. You feel triumph for one breath. But other days the water gives nothing. You chew dried rations until gums ache. The mouth tastes of old salt and old fear. You feel the stomach claw the spine, and you pretend it is not happening because admitting hunger gives it power. Therefore, every scrap becomes a reason to risk the woods. You see hunters tighten belts, check spears, and vanish into trees that swallow sound. The woods do not behave like Greenland. In Greenland, emptiness stretches honest and hard. Here, you step under branches and the world closes around you. You see ferns and fallen logs and shadows that move without wind. You feel the damp grab your boots. A bird erupts and your heart kicks like a startled horse. Therefore, every noise becomes either dinner or death. You hear something that might be a voice, but the sound slides away and you cannot prove it. Hunting parties return with meat sometimes, but they also return with wide eyes. You see a man touch his own throat as if checking it still exists. He speaks low, fast, as if loud words invite arrows. He swears he hears speech deeper in the woods, short, sharp syllables, nothing like Norse tongues. You feel the room tighten around the tail, but no one sees the speakers clearly. Therefore, the camp learns to live with an invisible edge. You see hands drift toward knife hilts even while eating. Contact begins the way lightning begins, silent until it is suddenly right there. One afternoon, figures stand at the camp's edge beyond thrown stones. You see them, strangers with bodies wrapped in skins, hair dark, eyes fixed. You feel the air stretch tight like a rope about to snap. A child in the camp whimpers, therefore someone hisses for silence. You see the strangers hold still, not charging, not begging, just waiting. Their patience feels like a weapon. Language fails immediately. Someone speaks loud and slow as if volume creates understanding. It does not. Hands gesture. Palms open. Fingers point to goods. You see bright cloth lifted into view, red like fresh blood. You see a small piece of metal flash and the stranger's eyes track it. You feel hope stir because one is a bridge. Therefore, trade becomes the first treaty. The cloth passes outward. Furs pass inward. The furs smell of animal and smoke, heavy with a land that knows itself. But hands hover near weapons anyway. A spear rests against a shoulder. A knife glints at a belt. You feel your own fingers flex around an axe haft as if the wood might leap away. The stranger's gaze slides to the camp wall, then to the ship. Therefore, their eyes ask a question without words. How long do you plan to stay? You see their nostrils flare at the smell of smoke and iron. Therefore, they know the camp is not just a visiting fire. The trade days feel like walking on ice that may not crack until the final step. The strangers return more than once. Each time they stand closer. Each time more shapes appear behind them. You see new faces half hidden, watching like wolves watch a herd. You feel the camp's mood shift. Excitement bites dread. Therefore, rules appear without being spoken. No sudden movements, no laughter too loud, no children near the edge. You see someone slip a finger along a sword's edge as if confirming reality. Scouts report numbers that refuse to match. One scout swears only a small band lurks nearby. Another returns pale and says canoes sit beyond the headland like teeth in a jaw. You feel the camp split between those who want to welcome and those who want to strike first. But striking first means choosing war without knowing the enemy's size. Therefore, every decision feels like gambling with lives. You see the leaders stare at the shoreline, jaw set, as if staring can summon certainty. Winter threatens even here. The days shorten. Nights arrive quicker, therefore the fire must last longer. Every log not stacked now becomes a future hour of shaking so hard teeth click like stones. You lift wood until shoulders burn. You feel splinters dig into palms. Inside the hall, tempers flare because hunger and fear sit at every bench. A joke lands wrong. A look lingers too long. Therefore, small grudges swell because there is nowhere for them to go. You see a man stare into a bowl as if it contains betrayal. The hall stands, but it also traps. Walls keep arrows out, but walls also keep panic in. You hear wind slam against turf like fists at a door. You feel smoke cling to hair and skin. Someone coughs through the night, and the sound becomes a reminder. Sickness comes too. Therefore, sleep turns shallow, broken by every creak. You see firelight flicker on faces that look older than they should. One day trade does not feel like trade. Strangers arrive in greater number. You see them cluster, tighter, closer. The gifts offered feel different, less careful, more demanding. You feel it in the way their hands move, quick, snatching. But the Norse side also tightens, therefore shoulders square, voices harden, and the space between groups shrinks like a closing fist. You see a child wander near the edge, and someone yanks the child back too sharply. The strangers notice. Their faces change. The moment it snaps refuses to announce itself politely. A shout erupts, not from one throat but many. You see bodies surge. Something hard slams into wood, stone against shield rim, and the shock jolts your arm. You feel animal panic rise from the belly to the chest. But there is no clear line, no duel, no single champion. Therefore, the crowd becomes the weapon. You see hands grabbing cloth, grabbing tools, grabbing anything that looks valuable. A stone catches a man's temple and he drops like a sack. You hear the skull hit ground with a sound that makes the stomach turn. You feel the camp's restraint evaporate. Someone swings an axe not at a log but at a body. The blade bites, therefore blood appears bright and sudden. The strangers recoil, but recoil is not retreat. It is the drawing back of a bow. You see eyes widen, not with fear alone, but with decision. Now it becomes war without banners. The strangers scatter toward the trees, but they do not flee. They flow into cover like water into cracks. You chase 2 steps, but the brush grabs your legs. You feel branches whip your face. A hiss cuts air, an arrow, and it thuds into a post with a wet punch. Therefore the camp learns the new rule: the enemy fights from shadows. You see the shaft quiver, vibrating like a living threat. The first volley arrives before the mind can accept it. Arrows flick from tree lean. You hear impacts, thump, crack, the sharp slap of wood splitting. You feel the shield jerk in your grip as a missile bites and sticks. Another slams into turf. Another. Now it is a storm, but the storm has intent. Therefore, every step outside cover becomes a question. Is this the one that ends you? You see a man spin and fall backward, a shaft buried where ribs meet. His mouth opens, but sound fails. You cannot count attackers. You see movement between trunks, paint, fur, darkness, but each glimpse vanishes. Canoes scrape shore to one side, therefore more bodies appear where none exist a breath ago. You feel the horrible truth settle. This land gives them roads you cannot see. The forest is their wall. The shoreline is their gate. Therefore the Norse wall becomes half a defense and half a trap. You see the leader point, shouting orders that scatter men along the turf line. A countercharge explodes because standing still means dying slowly. You leap over the low wall with others. Feet pound. You feel the weight of a sword, heavy, reassuring, therefore dangerous, because it makes you believe you control the fight. Steel flashes. A figure darts and you swing. The blade bites something. Arm, shoulder, maybe only a cloak, but the figure slips away. You hear a cry, high and sharp, and it pulls more shapes from cover like bees from a struck hive. You see a spear thrust toward your belly. You twist, and the point schemes leather, scraping ribs. The enemy does not stand in a neat line. They strike, then vanish. Therefore, every chase becomes a mistake. A Norseman pursues too far, and suddenly he is alone among trunks. You hear his shout turn into a gurgle. You feel your legs want to run to him, but running means separating. But leaving him means admitting the forest decides. Therefore the line breaks anyway, piece by piece, because mercy and panic both pull men off position. You see blood on leaves, not a body, and that absence feels worse. Inside the camp, screams ignite new chaos. Someone yells that the hall roof catches. You spin and see flame lick along thatch. Smoke pours out, thick and choking. You feel your eyes water immediately. But fire is not just fire. Fire is a signal. Therefore the enemy knows exactly where to focus pressure because the camp glows like a beacon. You see silhouettes moving closer in the smoke, therefore shape and threat become the same thing. A torch drops near stored goods. Dry wood snaps and pops. You feel heat punch your face as if slapped. Someone tries to stamp flame, but the fire climbs faster than boots can crush. The hall's doorway becomes a mouth vomiting smoke. Therefore breathing becomes work. You cough, and the cough makes you swallow soot. You see a woman drag a child away from the burning wall, eyes huge, hair singed at the ends. In the confusion, someone falls, one of yours, and the scream is the most dangerous sound of all. The scream tells the enemy you can bleed. It also tells your own body that you are mortal. You feel fear change form. It becomes anger because anger moves. but anger also blinds. Therefore, a man lunges at a shadow and takes an arrow through the thigh. He goes down hard, hands clawing at the shaft. You see his fingers slick with blood, and the smell hits, iron sweet, hot, real. The ship sits at the shore like the last door out of a burning house. Someone shouts that the ship must be saved. Another shouts that the hull must be held. You feel the split tear through the group like a wedge. But holding the hull risks encirclement. Saving the ship risks abandoning shelter and wounded. Therefore, the decision is not heroic, it is arithmetic under fire. You see the leader's eyes flick to the water, to the smoke, to the trees, calculating without numbers. You pivot toward the shoreline because the sea is cruel but honest. Hands grab what matters: iron tongs, nails, tools, bundles of cloth, furs, anything that proves this place exists. You feel the weight cut into shoulders again, therefore every step becomes slower. Arrows keep coming. A shaft skips off a shield rim and scrapes your forearm, hot and stinging. You taste blood where teeth cut the inside of the cheek. You see men dragging a chest that bumps over stones, spilling small treasures into sand. Someone stops to scoop them, but stopping means dying. Therefore, the chest is abandoned. The shoreline turns into a choke point. Waves slap like impatient hands. The knarr rocks, therefore boarding is difficult. You see a man slip, fall into surf, and flail because Wool drinks water. Two others haul him up by hair and belt. You feel the desperate teamwork, rough, violent, necessary. But behind, the camp burns. Therefore, the smoke follows like a pursuing animal. You see canoes moving at the edge of vision, hugging shore, trying to cut off the launch. Someone shouts to push off now. Someone else screams that a wounded man still lies near the wall. You feel the moral hook sink deep, leave him and live, or rescue and risk all. But arrows do not pause for compassion. Therefore, a small group runs back anyway, because humans do not become machines just because danger demands it. You see them sprint, shields up, legs pumping through smoke. One returns with a body slung awkwardly, limp, head lolling. Another does not return at all. The knarr finally floats enough. Oars drop into water, and the first pull feels like ripping free from a trap. You feel muscles scream with exhaustion. But the current and surf fight back, therefore every stroke must be perfect. An arrow skips off the gunwale and clatters into the bilge. Another sticks in a plank with a dull. You see the ship take wounds too. You smell pitch and wet wood and smoke together, a stench of survival. Distance grows by inches, but inches are life. The shore recedes. The burning hull becomes a smear of flame behind gray smoke. You feel your chest still heaving like it cannot believe it is still allowed to breathe. But the enemy does not chase into open water far. Therefore, the attack shifts into something colder, watching. You see figures stand at tree lean, still, therefore victory or warning, impossible to tell. Night comes with no comfort. The ship drifts in safer water, but safety is only less danger. You hear wounded men moan. You feel the sting of salt in cuts and the ache of pulled muscles. Someone tries to bind a leg, but cloth runs short. Therefore, improvisation rules, strips torn from tunics, leather belts cut into ties. You see a man stare at his hands, shaking as if they belong to someone else. Dawn arrives like a verdict. The ship edges back toward a quieter shore or sheltered cove, and the survivors count heads. You look from face to face, and the count comes up wrong. You feel the absence like missing teeth in the mouth, gaps that the tongue keeps finding. But grief has no time to sit. Therefore, attention snaps to practical questions: food, water, repairs, escape. You see bandages dark with blood. You see eyes rimmed red from smoke and salt. A walk through the camp, what remains of it, feels like stepping through evidence at a crime. Scorched turf collapses underfoot. Snapped spear shafts lie like broken bones. Scattered trade goods glitter in ash, beads, bits of cloth, a metal fragment twisted by heat. You feel cold in the stomach because each object whispers, someone fights for this, and someone dies for this. Therefore, the mind finally accepts the enemy is not a single raid. It is a condition. You see a smear of blood half hidden in frost, already turning dark. The enemy is not only warriors and trees. The enemy is distance. The ocean behind is not a road, but a barrier of weeks and storms. You feel the weight of isolation press down. Reinforcements do not march over a hill. But even if another ship leaves Greenland, it arrives late, hungry, damaged. Therefore, it arrives as another mouth to feed and another life to risk. You see the knarr's seams and understand they are the colony's veins. If they split, everything bleeds out into the sea. The decision to leave does not feel like surrender at first. It feels like triage. You load what matters: timber for repairs, furs for proof and profit, iron tools because iron means survival anywhere. You feel the shame burn anyway because the land offers abundance in one hand and hostility in the other. But holding this shore requires more bodies than sit on this deck. Therefore, Vinland defeats you without one clean battle. It defeats you through pressure, cost, and the math of being outnumbered far from home. You see the coast one last time and it looks untouched. Therefore, your footprints mean nothing to it. The ship turns toward the open Atlantic, and the sea answers with indifference. Oars bite. Sail rises. You feel the craft lean and gather speed like a living thing eager to flee. But every wave reminds you that escape carries its own price. Therefore, men stare at the horizon and do not speak because words might turn into sobs or accusations. You see Greenland in the mind, not yet on the waterline, and it is not home so much as it is the place that still contains your name. The verdict sits in the body before it reaches the mind. You feel it in the empty space beside a bench where someone always sits. You feel it in the lighter weight of shared duties because fewer hands remain. You smell smoke and hair days later, therefore the attack follows even across water. The cost is counted in wounds that fester, in tools abandoned, in a hull that becomes ash, in a dream that cannot be defended by courage alone. You see how bravery breaks when it cannot eat. Now the mirror rises, sharp and modern, because the pattern refuses to die. You see that discovery is easy compared to sting. A coastline can be reached by daring, but a foothold is held by supply, cohesion, and the ability to replace losses faster than they happen. You feel the truth grind into place. The longest weapon in this story is not the sword, it is the supply line. But supply lines stretch thin, therefore they snap. You see the same logic in any distant venture where resources lag behind ambition and local resistance knows the ground better than outsiders ever can. The legacy question waits at the end like a quiet judge. Imagine standing on that burning shore again, smoke in the throat, arrows in the air, the ship rocking like the last promise. You see the wounded. You see the tools. You feel the pull between pride and survival. But the choice cannot satisfy every duty. Therefore ask this, and do not answer quickly. When the dream costs lives and the land refuses you, which part of yourself deserves to be saved, the claim, the people, or the story told afterward?